Rick Miracle here with video number 22 of 25. Take a really good hard look at these pictures. Notice the reoccurring cycle of the Ice Age. Notice the nuclear explosions. The governments of the world have exploded about 2,000 nuclear bombs on planet Earth. The Illuminati and the powers that be have been bombing the Earth with nuclear explosions and scaring us with global warming. But if you look at these charts, and you look at the ice in Alaska, North Pole, you'll notice that there's no global warming. The ice actually grew. So what are they trying to do? Take over the world? Look at these videos and you decide. I just report. Thank you. Hello, Rick Miracle returning with video number 22 of 25. And this one's going to be a little different. It is November 14th, 2013, Thursday, and I'm in Orlando, Florida, about 1 o'clock. And the first book we're going to start with is ClimateGate, The Marijuana Conspiracy, Project Bluebeam, by Paul Bondarowski. Probably saying it wrong. But there's some crazy things going on in the world right now. And I thought I'd get in, knowing that we know that the Illuminati and high-level executives are mostly Zionists with the government, and the wars going on, and a lot of other craziness. I thought I'd get into some of the tools these evil people have and some of the things they might do to you and me. So that would be Project Bluebeam. I highlighted some of this by Serge Monest, 1945 and 1996. Serge Monest and another journalist, both of whom were researching Project Bluebeam, died of heart attacks within weeks of each other. Although neither had a history of heart disease. Serge was in Canada. The other Canadian journalist was visiting Ireland. Prior to his death, the unknown commandos abducted Serge's daughter in an attempt to dissuade him from pursuing his research into Project Bluebeam. His daughter was never returned. Huh. So you think he had a fake heart attack? I think they did it? And the other journalists researching Project Bluebeam? What is Project Bluebeam? The infamous NASA, Narrow Aeronautics and Space Administration, Project Bluebeam has 4 different steps in order to implement the New Age religion with the Antichrist at its head. Remember, this series is Masonry and Satanism, and I have said numerous times it should be Masonry, Satanism, Illuminati, Zionism, bank stores, and all the elite blue bloods who are ruling the world, taking away our rights and our wealth and our freedoms. Ouch. We must remember that the New Age religion is the very foundation for the New World government. It is completely impossible. Let's see if we got that right. We must remember that the New Age religion is the very foundation for the New World government, without which religion the dictatorship of the New World Order is completely impossible. So they have to have this Luciferian religion in order to pull off the New World Order. I'll repeat, without a universal belief in the New Age religion, the success of the New World Order will be impossible. That is why the Bluebeam project is so important to them, and it has been so well hidden until now. Project Bluebeam. Engineered earthquakes and hoaxed discoveries. The first step in the NASA Bluebeam project concerns the breakdown, reevaluation of the archaeological knowledge. It deals with the setup with the artificially created earthquakes at certain precise locations on the planet, i.e. the HAARP system, H-A-A-R-P. I continue to mention every time on most of these videos. It's the antenna array in Alaska, about 40 square acres of transmitters aimed up at the sky. They can bounce a microwave signal and off the sky over any city. It's aimable. They can aim it. Or they can aim it at the ionosphere and heat it up and raise it up and move massive amount of air, stir the jet stream, i.e. control your weather. So while they're screaming global warming and they have this big heater and they're controlling the weather, makes one wonder. Anyways, the whole project to fool the people with all these changes in history is called Project Bluebeam. Supposedly new discoveries which will finally explain to all the people the era of the fundamental religious doctrines. They're going to explain to you that everything you know is wrong. They're lying. The falsification of this information will be used to make all nations believe that their religious doctrines have been misunderstood for centuries and misinterpreted. Psycho. Bear with me on my reading. Doing the best I can. It's the information that's more important than my artistic skills at reading. Psychological preparations for the first step have already been implemented with the film 2001, A Space Odyssey, the Star Trek series, where I say Gene Roddenberry went into a trance. So does he. He's the one who said it. And got his talk to, I guess, demonic beings or beings from the other side. And I've been rewatching this Star Trek series. And I'll be darned, you can tell it's satanic. Crazy. Independence Day, and as we are all aware, since this book published in 2010, as we are all aware, there have been numerous end-of-the-world movies, all which deal with invasions from space and the coming together of all the nations to repel the invaders. Well, we know they got Ison, the comet, in the news now. A lot of people all over the world are freaking out that the Earth or the Sun might get hit by a gigantic comet. That could be a sun. So they are saying, is this part of Project Bluebeam? Is it a fake? Will they use neutron bombs or other kinds of satellite weaponry system like they used in 9/11 and fake all kinds of comets? In later films, such as Jurassic Park, deal with the theories of evolution and claims God's words are lies. Okay, that was number one. Number two, the big space show in the sky. The second step in the NASA Bluebeam project involves a gigantic space show with three-dimensional optical holograms and sounds laser projection with multiple hologram images to different parts of the world, each receiving a different image according to the predomination national, regional, religious faith. So wherever you are, you'll see your God in the sky telling you, all us gods are one God. This new God's voice will be speaking in all languages. In order to understand that, we must study various secret services, research done in the last 25 years. And if you've been watching my videos, I've been exposing the Basis series, Miles Johnston, for its research. I shouldn't say exposing, I've been telling you. For its research, which I highly recommend you go watch some of his videos. And that will expose the culprits, the Illuminati, the secret services, which Bill Clinton admitted in MK Ultra. And he apologized for the abduction of people and the mind control, slaves they were making and are making. And in my opinion, from my research, which I have read, which I'll either get to that eventually, This millions, at least a million, maybe millions of zombies, people under some kind of mind control right now, triggerable probably, in the U.S., in the world, and this is all documented. Miles Johnston, Johnston, the Basis series, Basis 1, Basis 8, Basis 10, on YouTube, free videos. People were abducted, people were mind controlled, they witnessed things, they tell all. It'll blow your mind. The third step, artificial thought and communication. The advancement of techniques propel us towards the third step in the Blue Beam project that goes along with the telepathic and electronically augmented two-way communication where ELF, VLF, and LF waves will reach each person from within his or her own mind, convincing each of them that their own God is speaking to them from the very depths of their own soul. So you hear voices, and it'll be the radio transmitters down the street or across town that will be, or satellites, or your own cell phone, or those new electric boxes that everybody's trying to not have installed on their homes for fear of all the control and harm the radiation can do to us. Such rays from satellites are fed from the memories of computers that have stored massive data about every human on Earth and their languages. The rays will then interface with their natural thinking to form what we call diffused artificial thought. So that's why they're tracking everybody and computerizing this with the gigantic computers around the world. And when they do this program, it'll be targeted towards even individuals. And so what you hear will be stuff you know, and they will have obtained that data to fool you. I think this is the Antichrist situation here. The all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, the Federal Reserve being established in secret by the Bank of England and the Rothschilds, which controlled the U.S. in 1913, which financed the situation to have the 1917 Russian Revolution, because the World War I was 1914 to 16, which weakened Russia and set everything into place for the Versailles Treaty with Germany owing so much money and enslaving all the other surrounding countries. And all these Zionist controllers and elites were in control of that whole process. So they overthrew Russia. They had World War I. They created the Federal Reserve. Then they imported millions of these Russian Bolshevik Zionist folks, minded Luciferic worshipping Jewish people, not all Jewish people, but these particular ones, which the Jewish people that were here weren't happy with this either and are fighting this, which we have already reviewed some of the books of authors who are Jewish and are exposing this. So the Sabbatans are one of the cults that worship Lucifer. I go on and on, don't I? Sorry. Anyways, universal supernatural manifestations via electronics. This is the fourth step. Concerns the universal supernatural manifestation with electronic means. It contains three different orientations. One, to make mankind believe that an alien off-world invasion is about to occur at every major city on Earth in order to provoke each major nation to use its nuclear weapons in order to strike back. This way, the United Nations Court will require that all those nations which launch nuclear weapons to disarm when the invasion is shown to have been false. And how will the United Nations know that the invasion was false? Well, they will have staged it, of course. So there you have it. I'm going to read some more from this, but I'm going to take a break after I have this last word. There's so much going on. The Agenda 21, the global warming scare, all of it is under the disguise of the socialist program spreading the wealth. It's a lie. It's basically to create more police action, more cameras, more boxes to monitor you on every corner, to basically get ready to enforce upon everybody in the world a complete enslaved system and kill off the people they don't need. Because even in Georgia, USA, the Georgia Guidestones say to reduce the population to 500 million worldwide, and it has Masonic symbolisms on the stones. Look them up on the internet, and maintained it at 500 million worldwide, because that's enough slaves for these elite folks who are doing all this to grow the crops and do the mining and all the things they need. So that means 6 billion, you and me and a lot of others, have to go, according to my research. And if you've been watching my videos, you might be getting the gist of what's going on also. I'll be back. Some of these topics I'll try to be brief on, but they're just supporting data. We already went over this book, Murder by Injection, which Eustace Mullins, who was a well-known famous journalist in the Washington, D.C. area, clearly showed us that quacks on quackery, that Rockefeller from 1900, maybe a little earlier than that, 1880, 1890, right up until World War I, and then after that, had all the doctors who were dealing in homeopathic medicine called quacks. That's the doctors who were using herbs and prescriptions and other kinds of cures to help people of their illnesses and sicknesses. And then Rockefeller also had his conglomerate of corporations and control and money that he was controlling the politicians of the USA, to have the doctors who practice homeopathic medicine to be disbarred or arrested if they practice medicine. And they took over the medical schools and trained the new doctors in allopathic, which is surgery, cutting people open. So they wanted to do away with homeopathic, and the Rockefeller Illuminati member and other people. This was a concerted effort. This was an intentional deed. They took homeopathy away from the people. Good foods, certain foods could cure certain ailments, certain glandular problems. I don't have to explain it to most people, because now it seems to be back. The pharmaceuticals, now that they outlawed homeopathy back then for 50 years and had those doctors disbarred and did not allow them to work as a medical doctor, and then they took over the medical schools, and now we know all the hospitals and the pharmaceutical industries, and they're patenting all those herbs and medical concoctions, and they control that. And the pharmaceutical industry is one of the biggest industries in the world right now, and everybody knows that. With that said, Richard Gerber wrote a couple books. A Practical Guide to Vibrational Medicine, Energy Healing, and Spiritual Transformation. And the other book, the first one here was written, and again, I'm not going to get much into this, I just want you to know it's out there, you can look it up. This one was in copyright 2000. This was his first book. And it's pretty thick. I mean, it's 3 fingers almost. Two fingers plus. Okay, and then of course he had a second book. This one here, Vibrational Medicine. This is a Richard Gerber, MD. Look him up on the internet. And this one here was 2001. So just the psycho-etheric interface. The next greatest discovery in the development of medicine. There is considerable evidence, this is page 121 in this book, there's considerable evidence to suggest that there exists a holographic energy template associated with the physical body. Like I showed you my dowsing and all the other search that the occultists and Satanists have into magic and stuff. I keep calling it quantum physics. There is a science behind it. We are all electrical, biological beings. We have pulsations of electricity in our body that operate this system. So this etheric body is a body that looks quite similar to the physical body, over which it is superimposed. It goes over here. It's like a little balloon over everybody. And if you lay down your partner, get your girlfriend to lay down or your wife on your knees, and if you take your hand gently and go a couple inches from her back or her skin or her arm, you'll feel a jello type like a substance. It's called plasma. Or vice versa. Get your husband to lay down or boyfriend, and take your hand, and you'll feel the plasma if you're just very gentle and very sensitive and take some time. We all have an auric energy field, and some people can see that. And of course, we talked about the aura in one of my studies, book reviews, and that there was a dye called Dionisine, which was made out of coal dust, coal in the coal mine. And you mix it with water and oil or whatever, and you put it between two planes of glass, and you look through it, you can see somebody's aura. Well, in the United States, that particular dye, Dionisine, is illegal. I wonder why. So that's just one thing. It's in his book. There's so many others here. The chakras, where people get their energy systems. That the flow of energy is a vortex, like a little tornado, coming from your root of your stomach, solar plexus. And then up here is another chakra, and here is a chakra. And then there's a chakra of a little vortex of energy in your forehead. My point is, there's this much studying done. I've read these books thoroughly. Back then there was all kinds of herbs and plants and vines, and everybody knows that the peyote mushrooms enabled the American Indians to go into a spiritual state. The Peruvians used ashkawushkahauska, however you say that, vine. They crushed it up, and sometimes crushed it up with heavy-duty tobacco leaves. Took it, drank it, went into a trance, went into the other side, to the spiritual world, like Edgar Cayce did in a trance that we went over in one of my videos. All this stuff ties together. I keep trying to tell you that. Anyways, my point being with this stuff, Eustace Mullins told us they took over the medical industry. Richard Gerber wrote a couple big thick books. I read all these books I show you, I read them all. And look at that. So there's all kinds of alternate, high-tech, observing your aura, medications, radio frequencies they can put you in and bathe you with a certain frequency and cure you of illnesses, cancer, tumors, all kinds of other ailments. That's the good news. Of course, the bad news is they took all that away, as Eustace Mullins explained to us. And Mr. Kissinger and Nixon and others in the gang, with the black ops programs of the government, had all the major medical labs concoct all kinds of mixtures of swine flu with pig flu with bird flu and mercury and all kinds of other things to create AIDS. It's all verifiable. Leonard Horowitz's book, AIDS and Ebola. We went over that. So they have the technology. The documentation is out there. That was my point of this little short thing. There's no way I'm going to try to start reading it to you. You can go online and look up Richard Gerger on Wikipedia and get the short version if you really want to know what's going on. Because there is something going on, and it is not nice. It is very, very malevolent. And the New World Order is all a part of it. If you've been watching my videos, it's all documented. And it's quite upsetting, quite concerning. And we need to wake up and pay attention. So there was 8 minutes of this much material. I'll move on to something else on this video. This is a little fascinating. Earth radiation. I read this book. By Kate Blanchard, however you say that name. Fascinating book. Published in 1976 and 1989 updated. Basically, the short of this is, everybody thinks the magnetic field from the North Pole to the South Pole is just one homogeneous field. It's not. It's like that wood panel behind me. There's the wood from here to here, and then there's the groove right here, and then the wood from here to here, and then the groove right here, and then the wood. Well, the magnetic field of the Earth is the same thing. There is a magnetic field, but there are every 12 or 16 feet, there is a denser magnetic line that runs from the north to the south. That visualization behind me, I think you can understand. So there's a grid of a higher magnetic dense field every 12 or 16 feet from the North Pole to the South Pole. Now, Did you know there's actually 2 poles on the north and 2 poles on the south? There is a magnetic north pole here and a magnetic south pole here, if you were to imagine an Earth. So the magnetic north pole would be here. But then there's another pole, a few hundred miles or so over to the right or left, called the rotational pole. So there's two fields of energy, the magnetic field and then a rotational spin amount of energy. And they both bathe the Earth in a field, and in a lot of places they crisscross, as you would imagine. 2 lines coming from different places, they would crisscross in different locations. And so it's called the Earth grid. So there are 2 poles on the Earth, the North Pole, magnetic, and the North Pole, the rotational. They're not in the same spot. Did you know that? With that said, I'll show you a picture. A lot of places where those poles cross, those magnetic fields, if they happen to be in your bed, you see the bed there that the couple are sleeping in, where that higher intensity field, here's another example here, people with different beds, you see how where the field on the top goes across the bottom of the bed, let's say the black dot, somebody's head, and then down there that goes across his stomach. Okay, so if you're in one of these fields coming across your bed, let's say they're 3 foot wide energy fields. It's the Earth grid. There are many books on the subject. You can look it up. The Curry line is one of them, and the Hartman line is the other one. Curry lines and Hartman lines. Dr. Curry, Dr. Hartman. They investigated these and discovered these. So one is the magnetic north and south pole, one is the rotational poles. So one is a Curry line, one is the Hartman line. They exist, there's plenty of books, it's called the Earth grid. So if your bed happens to be at the intersection of those 2 grids, just imagine they're a flow of energy like electricity in a wire. And they cross. Where they cross creates a vortex. And if it happens to be where your stomach is, you're going to have stomach problems if you're sleeping in it at 8 hours a day. If it's where your head is, you're going to have tumors in your brain. If it flows this way in your bed, from the pillow down to your feet, it's called pushing. And it pushes the cells. All your cells are bathed in that river of magnetic field day and night for 8 hours, 10 hours, 6 hours, how many hours you sleep. If it flows up through your feet towards your head, it's called pushing. Pushing and pulling. Look it up. Curry lines, Hartman lines. So my point with this book, I'm just trying to introduce you to this reality that you don't know and the benefits of it. That's the amazing thing. This doctor here has, as you can see, examined many places with many lines. So my point being is this. If you're over in Germany or you're over in China and some other places and you get cancer, the first thing they do is send a dowser out to your house and make sure you don't have these energy lines crossing where your body is, where you're sick. Because if you do, all they have to do is move your bed out of that energy line and you will not be sick anymore. The medical establishment, the powers that be, know this stuff. Why don't you and me? Kate here went to the hospital over in one German town, took 1,000 or more of the records of people with cancer, plotted them with pins on the map of that German town, and they all lived on the energy line. Huh. So here we have Rockefeller getting rid of homeopathic medicine, wanting allopathic surgery, hospitals, money, taking over the medical schools, licensing the doctors, money. Then there's this particular cure where 1,000 people's records were taken from the hospital, plotted on a map, and it was a nice long straight line where there was one of these lines. So what do you think was causing all those cancers in that German town? It was the energy line. You think that they made that front page news? Did they tell everybody? No. A lot of your historic archaeological sites of your churches and temples and all over the world, a lot of people know this who do these studies, they're built in these intersections. They're called power points. They're vortexes, they're of energy, communicating with the higher power of the right side of your brain, to whatever creates this reality. So again, my point is not to read you this book. You can go get it. Use the book site on the internet, like I say. Type in the word dowsing, type in Hartman line, Curvy line on your computer, and you too will be informed. But why isn't it in our medical system? A lot of these people don't need to be on pharmaceutical care, don't need to be in hospitals, don't need to have surgeries. The simple thing of moving out of the energy line could cure maybe, what, 50% of everybody that's having some kind of ailment? Possibly. In China, for years, 100 years, 1,000 years, you couldn't build a house in China until they sent somebody out, a dowser with the pendulum or the tree rods, to make sure there wasn't an energy line where you were going to put your house. They knew all about it. The Germans knew about it. In Germany and England, they used dowsers to find tin and copper and gold and silver and water. Yep. Stuff you don't know that they know. And this is with the power structure from the Illuminati down and all the elites. They've known about all this for many years. The Catholic Church knew all about it. They made it forbidden. They said if you knew about this or practiced the use of dowsing to find water, or told people about discovering these lines, they would accuse them of witchcraft and burn them at the stake. So the people in the know all about this stuff, and now you know a little more. Thank you. Continuing on. I know I'm being quick about these. I'm just trying to do a quick book review, mostly to let you know that this technology exists. Radiesthesia. Abbé Mermet. He was, his life was, I think he died in 1930s. And he was a priest working with the Catholic Church. And he became very proficient at the pendulum of finding water, finding people, finding minerals, all kinds of things with the pendulum. And I read this book a long time ago. But tracing missing persons. Remember we did that one book review on psychic detectives? There are several methods, but I shall confine myself to my own method. I require three things: a photograph of the missing person, or an object that he has touched or worn, tie, handkerchief, hairs, a plan on which is indicated the house he has left or whoever he was seen for the last time, a map of the region so as to be able to eventually to follow his track. So he needs his hair. So the bottom line is every human being's DNA is different. And as minute as it is, like I said, the right side of your brain is infinitesimally faster and more expansive in the universe than the left side of your brain, which is the conscious side of your brain that you and I are talking and listening and touching a keyboard and all these things. That's your conscious side. And then there's your subconscious side that connects to the universe. And the communication to that is your pineal gland. Looks like a little pine cone right here in between the two lobes of your brain. So most of us, we think we have one brain, but we have two brains pushed up against each other. There's a brain barrier in between. So anyways, every individual, I'm not going to get into the whole text of this. I've read 100 books on dowsing. That was my study for 4 or 5 years. And we'll get more into that maybe in other videos. But basically, if you have the hair of somebody, or the skin, or the fingernail clippings, or the shirt, anything that they're in contact with, there's some portion of their cellular structure in that material, and it vibrates on an infinitesimally small scale. On the orgone level, which William Reich was thrown in jail for trying to tell the world about it. We'll get into that later. So anyways, this infinitesimal level, if I plucked one of my hairs out and threw it over there on the chair, and I were to be here, between me and that hair is a vibrational current. He calls it the radiation, there's a word for it. So there's this ray, a ray of energy. Okay? And the same thing with gold. If you want to find gold, and you know what kind of gold is in a particular area, you get some of that gold, set it on the table, and wherever there is any matching gold, you put your pendulum in a circle like this, and wherever that ray of energy is between the golds, it'll start vibrating, your pendulum. So every time you swing through the ray, it'll vibrate. I can do this, it'll vibrate. So, you know, if you want to understand voodoo and all these other spiritual, satanic technologies, this is it. These technologies can be used for good, or with the voodoo doll, remember they get a piece of the person's shirt or their clothes or their hair, and then they stick pins in it. That's what you call intent. The ray is there between the person and the hair, so the beam is there, the ray, and then with the mental intent of looking at the doll, forcing the ill intent on that ray, it actually goes to the person. So my point being, these things are not mythologies or just ghost stories. These things are real. And again, my point is, the powers that be right now, like with the Georgia Guidestones wanting to rid the earth of 6 billion people, and with the HAARP system and the sky spraying, and the confiscation of the allopathic medicine and putting allopathy on us, homeopathic medicine, and allopathy on us, all these things combined, the pharmaceutical industries, the economic destruction that Alan Greenspan said they were doing to this country and the world, the forceful, the Communist Manifesto, the Sabbatan Jews who worship Lucifer. You get it? I'm just trying to make a point. There's this technology out there. He can find water. He would go around for the Catholic Church. He would go around, and they even have here, they have the description of the fundamental waves. That's what they call it. So every compound from the periodic chart in chemistry, nickel, tin, salt, water, everything has a compass, emanation of a ray from it. I realize it's harder to imagine, but basically look at a prism. You put a light in one end and you get the rainbow colors out the other end, right? Okay, so every compound, if you ever look at a periodic chemical chart in chemistry, a lot of things are made up of 6-sided crystals, 12-sided crystals, lattice structures. Well, when the orgone energy goes through anything, because of that particular matter, it radiates in a different, it reflects in a particular angle. So if it's salt, it might reflect out this way. If it's water, it might reflect out through the bottom. So if you take a compass, let's say I put a material in a box and I don't know what it is, but I know where the rays are supposed to be by the compass direction, east, west, south, and I go around the box and I find out it's right here, and I look on this chart. See, it gives you the compass direction. Then I can tell you what's in the box. Fascinating? So the same thing with water. When water is a conductor of electricity. That's why they have that little switch in your bathroom where the hairdryer goes in. If you drop it in the water, it pops off and you have to reset the button because it's a conductor of electricity. So when water, a cavity of water is running underground, it emanates a big sort of organic magnetic field, different kind of magnetic field. So when a dowser's walking around with the sticks, it starts twitching when he goes in the magnetic field because the subconscious portion of the brain recognizes it. This is all trainable, just like gymnastics, you know, somebody who's a good gymnast, or basketball player, football player, singer. You have to practice with your voice. These are just skill sets you can learn, dowsing. So my point is the government, with all the things they're into, and the Project Bluebeam we talked about, where they're going to have big holographic things in the sky. You're going to hear voices in your head. They're planning on faking a return of God. Of course, it's the Antichrist. It's the New World Order takeover. All this is biblical and religious in nature, but regrettably, it's the satanic nature. Hence the name of my videos, Masonry and Satanism, which should be Masonry, Satanism, Illuminati, and Zionism, the banksters, the globalists, the people taking over the whole world, who want to enslave the population and return to the golden age with the pharaohs and the big castles and all that stuff, and all the people do not own land and are slaves in the field and should be thankful to be able to eat and live and breathe. And you have to ask permission to have a baby. And if they like your little girl when she's a little teen, they can take her and have her for their sexual virgin or something. I don't know. It's all a matter of a little insane, isn't it? I don't even like having these conversations or reading these books, but it's what I discovered, and I'm sharing it with you. Thank you. All right, you're going to love this. There's that book I was talking about, The World Grid. Anti-Gravity in the World Grid by David Hatcher Childers. Anyways, they mapped this whole thing out. So the elites know all this. Here's an old-time picture where back 500 years ago, they would walk around with the pendulum and put the stakes in the ground. And here they were not finding water, they were mapping the grid. See the grid on the ground? So if your bed was over that, you would be ill. And I just reached over there. I have all these books. That's why I'm doing these videos. What's the sense of me gaining all this knowledge if I don't share it with people? The Philadelphia Experiment. That's in this book. You might want to look that up. That's on page 109 of this book. The Philadelphia Experiment. And I'll hold this book up so you can look it up. So the Philadelphia Experiment is a fascinating story, which is very applicable to the Project Bluebeam and all the craziness going on in the world. And like I said, the 109. And I'll be brief about this. I know it's dumping too much on you, but this is going to be fascinating. The Philadelphia Experiment. Those are admirals in the Navy. What they did is they had this big ship. Basically, this ship, I'm going to read right here on page 104. They just sort of vanished in thin air. Right there. This is the guy who called the cops. So what they did is they were trying to create radar systems or camouflage systems for ships. They thought, how nice would it be if we could camouflage our ship from another ship or aircraft radar? Because, you know, the plane's flying along and all of a sudden on the screen, beep, beep, beep. Well, they would like to. So what they did is they installed radar transmitters, microwave, same thing with HARP and your cell phone and all that stuff, around the perimeter, the front, the sides of the ship. And they were using the mathematics, and they were going to create one gigantic bubble of a magnetic bubble. Well, the craziest thing occurred. Is the ship disappeared. It disappeared from one location into another location. So they turned on the system. You know, magnetic generators, they make that noise. We've all heard that from our refrigerator or whatever, the motors. Big hum of the magnetic transformers. And puff, the ship disappeared. And it reappeared 50, 60, 70 miles away. And the craziest, scariest thing ever happened. Some of the people that were on the deck of the ship, when it reappeared, their bodies, if let's say there was a bulkhead right there, you know, a steel wall or even the floor, when it reappeared, some of their bodies were half in the bulkhead, their feet and legs on the other side and the inside, and the head and all that, and the outside, in the steel casing bulkhead. So the whole thing had, I guess, to explain it, it demasked. the mass became not dense. So I guess you could, if you were in control of yourself, while they had that magnetic bubble on, you could, if you were conscious and aware of what you were doing, you could actually put your fist through the steel and pull it back up. The density became much less. And not only that, the Earth rotates, as we all know, so it became subtracted from the Earth's grip, in other words, where it was parked. And the Earth, of course, kept turning. So when it came out of that magnetic bubble, it was someplace else. And one reason is because the Earth turns, but a lot of people don't realize this. The Earth just doesn't turn. It's also flying through space around the sun. And even the sun and the Earth is flying forward around the galaxy every 25,000 years. So we have several motions at work here. The sun and the Earth and the planets moving around the center of the galaxy. The planet Earth moving around the sun. And the planet Earth rotating every day. So you have three different calculations of motion here taking place. So if you were to take an object and turn on a magnetic field where it wasn't caught in the grip of this gravity field, or it would being pulled with the air and the ground, and then you turned it back on, it would be in the same place in space, but the Earth would have moved. Just a theory I have of how it changed locations. But the point is, it did disappear. It's called the Philadelphia Experiment. On YouTube there is a free movie of the Philadelphia Experiment movie, the full version, I think. And there's plenty of websites about it, plenty of books about it. So this is the world grid. It has several subjects on here. The dowsing thing that I keep talking about. So again, ley lines, the meaning of atom, the mathematics of the world grid, the gravity vortexes. Apparently over in Israel, there's one of those big grid crosses. And over Jerusalem, where the dome is and all that, when I was younger and sailing, a scientific buddy of mine who was at the FIT, Florida Institute of Technology, was sitting on my sailboat explaining that he was going over to Israel, and they were measuring this vortex field that was like a spinning energy, like you see in the water when you pull the plug out of the tub. So again, my point is not to try to teach you all this stuff, but you should know that our scientists, our Black Ops program, with the Miles Johnston's theories where they're abducting people and they're microchipping people and they're brainwashing people, that have trigger words that can make them assassins and do other crazy things, including being sex objects for high-level politicians. Kathy, one of the people that was involved in the mind control program, Kathy, I'll have to do a little bit of material on her. She's detailed in a book her whole thing and the sex she was forced to have with presidents of the United States. Quite a horrible description of all the activities she says they made her do. She was at a lot of the high-level people's parties and all that stuff. So whether you believe all this stuff, I'm not trying to make you believe everything. I'm saying, I even say don't believe me. Go get the books. Listen to these people, Miles Johnston series, The Basis, and decide for yourself. Be right back. Alright, we know they're using global warming and as a tool in Agenda 21, taking away people's rights, can't use your own water, pollution, overpopulation, all the crazy things. And we know that the New World Order is real, that they took over Russia, killed 66 million people, created the Federal Reserve in secret, had World War I, World War II to get the property from Palestine, create Israel, started out as just a few pieces of property. Now they own most of it. Now they're attacking all the other countries. And another thing that concerned me is with the global warming and all that. So I had pondered the question in my head, how many nuclear explosions have these guys fired? So I went on Wikipedia. The United States has conducted around 1,054 nuclear tests. Call me crazy. Do you think that could mess with the weather? You think? And they're worried about you and your fireplace? And they're doing 1,054 nuclear explosions? That's just the United States. United Kingdom did 45 nuclear explosions. The Soviet Union did 715 nuclear explosions. France did 210 nuclear explosions. China did 45 nuclear explosions. Pakistan, 6. North Korea, I guess we know in the news a couple. India, 5. 24 years, 5. So my point is, these people are experimenting with our own lives, messing with our planet. What gives them the right? The Vela incident. In what is known as the Vela incident, some country may have detonated a nuclear device on September 22, 1979 in the Indian Ocean, according to satellite data. It is not certain whether it was actually a test, or if it was, who would have been responsible for it, although France, Israel, or South Africa are sometimes named. So there's more nuclear explosions that we don't even know about. And the deployment, parachute, airdropped, 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 airdrop, ground, barge, airdrop, ground, airdrop, airdrop. So you can look this up on Wikipedia. My point is, this global warming hoax, and I want to get into that. It is a complete hoax. What I did is I went on the internet and I put in ice core samples. You can do this too. Photos, images. Ice core samples, images. And you'll come up with the website where many universities have gone to Antarctica, the Himalayas, Alaska, wherever, South America, South Pole. And there's a lot of images on that website, ice core samples and images. And so they do a whole core, drilling a mile deep into the ice, and then they lay it out on top of the ground. And when you had a warm season, of course, things grew everywhere. And in the fall, there would be a lot of pollination, or a lot of the debris, like falling leaves that were all crushed up, dust in the air. And it was when it was an ice age, of course, there wouldn't be so much dust, and other chemicals from the plants and everything else. So by plotting this mile-long ice core sample, they could tell the difference between, and other chemicals, nitrogen in the air. If you had a lot of things growing, there'd be a lot of nitrogen. Not so many things growing, not so much nitrogen. So by testing these things in these mile-long core samples, they could plot all the ice ages. Now what they discovered, and it's right on the internet, you can look at it, is every 600-700 years there was this big spike. Boom. 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 That they have this ice age. So it has nothing to do with people. This goes back 1,000,000 years. I suspect what it has to do with is, like I said, the Earth goes around the sun, and the Earth turns, and the sun travels through space. But not only does it travel through space, the sun, this is the galaxy, Milky Way, for example, and the center is the big yellow ball where my hand is. So here would be the sun traveling around the center of the galaxy. But the thing that it doesn't just travel in a straight line like a car. It goes up and down like a little wave through the galaxy, the center line. It's like a gravitational pull. So the sun is traveling like this. And when it travels like that, it's carrying behind it, like in a little vacuum tube, the planets all in a little spiral. So they're going up and down through this disk-like field in the galaxy. You can look on Milky Way galaxy on the computer and see that it's a big disk-like thing. And our sun is just one of the suns, and it goes up and down every period of time. So I suspect as it goes through this field, sorry for the interruption, well, basically the sun goes up and down through the field. But if you look on the ice core samples, you will see that there is a spike every so many hundreds of years of an ice age, and it gets hot, then it gets really warm. Something else on the internet you might find interesting. The Gulf Stream, they said, stopped, and that stopped right after the Gulf oil spill, when they were dumping all those chemicals into the Gulf that they wouldn't tell us what they were dumping. So I'm going to talk about this book, Casebook of Alternative 3 by Jim Keith. So there's a lot of investigators out there, and I'm just trying to give you a quick jump on some of this stuff. In 1975, the normally conservative television program Science Report broadcast the most shocking investigation story ever shown on British television, an international conspiracy of monumental proportions with the code name Alternative 3. So what, UFOs, secret societies, and world control. God, sounds like all these videos I've been doing. The rich elite of the world have initiated a secret program to escape the environmental pollution and overpopulation of destroying the earth. Well, I know if you look on the internet and the Denver airport and many other places, there are supposed to be many underground cities and tubes and all this stuff. Transport between the places. And they're stocking them up with supplies and goods. So I'm just wondering what they're planning to do. UFOs are actually Secret Service government aircraft with capabilities far beyond what we are told. So we don't need to be having all this pollution and all these problems. They don't want to bring in the conveniences and the new modern technologies, apparently, until they get rid of a lot of people. So it seems. Top space scientists from around the world are being abducted to provide personnel for space bases. Citizens are being kidnapped and subjected to mind control to serve as slave labor at secret space colonies. So, whether it's true or not, one thing here that I thought was interesting, I'll just read that for page 92. And again, I'm not trying to read your book, I'm just trying to let you know there's more out there than you know. And what do these people know? What can they do to us? I think it's up to us as people to at least pay attention and be aware of these issues. If a Black Death could spread throughout the world once in every generation, survivors could procreate freely without making the world too full. Guess we know why they made the AIDS thing, and they're doing all these other things, and they're sky spraying every city right now like crazy. My friend just called me up, Richard from Key West. He said, Rick, this is today, November 14th, 2013. He said, Rick, they're spraying like hell here in Key West, Florida. Why would they be spraying Key West, Florida? The state of affairs might be somewhat unpleasant, but what of it? Substantial evidence exists that AIDS was created as a custom-tailored Black Death, although nary a word of such a suspicion appears in the mainstream press. Well, we know in the news all the time they keep predicting a swine flu, or these flus are becoming resistant to drugs, and again, I think it's all a lie. I think there is some nefarious activities going on, and even Alan Greenspan saying they were intentionally doing creative economic destruction before Congress. Why are they making everybody be under such large stress and losing jobs and homes and probably drinking too much, taking drugs, getting divorced, messing with their whole family and their whole lives? While on TV is everything but sexual and perversion and the stupidest, mind-numbing, ignorant, insulting TV program that any human could watch. Think about those programs. I mean, Family Guy the other day grabs a dog and rips him in half and slides the whole carcass over his head. It's just insanity. There's not even an explanation for it. In 1969, in a testimony before the House Appropriation Committee of the U.S. Congress, the Department of Defense Biological Warfare Division requested $10 million to produce organisms that would selectively destroy the immune system. That was in Leonard Horowitz's book, AIDS and Ebola. You got pictures of all the contracts and the companies named. Quoting from the committee's minutes, within the next 5 to 10 years it would probably be possible to make a new infection microorganism that could differ in certain important respects from any known diseases causing organisms. Most important of these is that it might be refractory to the immunology and therapeutic process upon we depend to maintain our relative freedom from infectious diseases. The requested funds were approved. So they're making these horrible viruses and diseases intentionally. A portion of the Army's Fort Detrick Biological Warfare Laboratory was transferred into the Frederick Cancer Research Facility and given to supposedly the National Cancer Institute for civilian research. They've been using the cancer institutes for my research and all the books I read. And we've only gone over 40 books. I've read about 100 and something. And so I know a lot of this stuff. But I don't want to tell you what I think. I wanted to read from you the books. Hence why we call it book review. So it's not me, it's the books. Some of these authors probably got some of it wrong. They got some of it right. That it's worth paying attention to, in my opinion. 1972, in volume 47 of the Bulletin of World Health Organization, there was a request by members of that group to make a virus that would selectively destroy the T-cell system. All right, you got the gist. You want to read the book, you read the book. Go on a used book site, go by your local bookstore, go on the internet, look it up. You can get it shipped to you. I'm not selling books. But I am trying to get people to wake up and see what's going on. That's why I'm doing all these book reviews. So we went over a lot of material. I guess the last one I can do is just show you this book. Forbidden Science. There's too many out there. Just read the back of it. I'm not even going to open a book. I've read all these books. Following a model of his best-selling Forbidden History and Forbidden Religion, Douglas Kenyon has assembled 42 essays by 19 researchers from his bi-monthly journal. So 19 different researchers. Material that explores science and technology that has been suppressed. It has been suppressed, I said that, by the orthodox scientific community. Why are they suppressing all these technologies? Well, they want to get rid of 6 billion people before they go ahead and make the new world, I guess. From the true function of the Great Pyramid and the megaliths, Emanuel Valesky's Astronomical Insights, Free Energy from Space, Cold Fusion, Rupert Sheldrake's Research in Telepathy, and ESP. Everything I've been talking about. Dowsing, ESP, mind control. There's too many books here. There is an organized war going on in science between materialistic theory and anything that could be termed spiritual and metaphysical. There you go. For example, Masaru Yoshimoto's research into the energies of water, although supported by photographic evidence, has been scoffed at by mainstream science. That's where if you had a loving thought, the water under a microscope would turn into a beautiful shape. And if you had a hateful thought, turned into an ugly shape. You know, look distorted and not right. Makes you wonder what they can do with that HAARP system. If water will change shapes with different frequencies and thoughts emanating from a human, and they have those frequencies and they can bathe the whole city in the evil thoughts and the bad thoughts. And we're bioelectrical beings. So I hope I've been supporting everything I've been trying to tell you with all these different books. If you don't believe one book, maybe you'll believe 100. Alright, because he had asserted that humans affect their surrounding with their thoughts. The materialism and absolute skepticism of the scientific establishment is detrimental to any scientific inquiry that thinks outside the box. This mentality is interested in preserving funding for its own projects, those that will not rock the establishment. From Tesla's discovery of alternating current to Robert Schoch's redating of the Sphinx, this book serves as a compelling introduction to the true history of alternate and new science research. So, there's just a lot of valuable stuff in here. Energy, the suppression of it. The author goes into detail. Some of the scientists get threatened. A lot of scientists have been killed. So this New World Order thing is very serious. Agenda 21, HAARP, sky spraying, battleships over there in Iran and Syria, taking God out of the school and putting 2.5 men and a different girl every bed at night with Charlie, and saying really nasty things in front of the little boy Jake, and all the other shows. In the Star Trek I've been reviewing, Gene Roddenberry's getting all the information from the other side and their trances and controls from demons. If you pay attention to the show on hula.com and watch the first few episodes of the first series, you'll see it. If you think, and you look at it, and you remember anything about the Bible and stuff like that, you'll go, oh my God. You have to remember where the storyline came from, the demonic world. They were playing that for people in the new series, and all the children, including me, grew up to that stuff. Many of us. Now they're growing up to SpongeBob and all these other cartoons, Miley Cyrus, with all turning into a Supergirl, and they're messing with the minds of children. Now Miley Cyrus is doing the crazy stuff on TV, and her dad in 2011 says to GQ that my family is under attack by Satan. Billy Ray Cyrus said that on to GQ. It's in the news. So it's not my imagination, all this stuff. I'm just trying to give you a brain dump. May not be the best speaker in the world, but if you sit back and grab a glass of wine or a cold beer or a cup of coffee and just look at this, when you do finish, you'll say, wow, that's interesting. You know, and then when you put all the videos that I've been doing together, you go, wow. So that's what's going on. That's the purpose. So this is video number 22. Hope my voice holds out for 3 more, I guess. Thank you, and God bless.